Hey y'all, this is Rachel Jackman, and this is my presentation. So before we get into it, I wanted to go over the feedback that I got on peer evaluations, and the main two things were making sure that I cite correctly. So I put my citations into the notes on the slides, but just to be sure, I also included a slide at the very end in case those notes don't show up. And the other thing was to cut down on text and use more keywords, so I tried to do that as well, and hopefully things still make sense. Okay, so I chose the topic of social media and political affiliation, and I really wanted to focus on how social media influences our political affiliation and if it makes any difference in our beliefs. And this matters because we need to know how to filter our social media, and we also need to know, more importantly, if we're the only ones who politically censor our feed, or if there's another person or thing out there doing it for us. Okay, so my first question was, do you approve or disapprove of social media companies labeling posts on their platforms from elected officials as inaccurate or misleading? And as you can see, the results were pretty spread out, but we do have a majority vote of 30% on strongly approve. So an interpretation of this, for me, it helps if I think of an example because there's a lot of words in there. So we're looking at if participants, what participants think of social media companies labeling elected officials' posts as misleading or inaccurate. So note this is elected officials, not just general users. So the example I thought of for this is if during the most recent election, say Donald Trump had posted something about BLM on Twitter, it would be if Twitter came in and marked his post inaccurate or misleading. And like I said before, results are pretty spread out, but we do have the majority vote of people saying, yes, that is okay. Okay, so question 2 is, do you approve or disapprove of social media companies labeling posts on their platforms from ordinary users as inaccurate or misleading? So this is very similar to our first question, but this time we're talking about ordinary users. And again, we can see that our results are pretty spread out. This time, however, the majority said that they somewhat approve of social media companies labeling ordinary users' posts as misleading or inaccurate. So they're not approving as strongly as last time now that it's hitting home with ordinary users. So again, it's a lot of words. So an example would be, say I made a post on Instagram about the COVID vaccines. It would be if Instagram went in and said, oh, this post is misleading or inaccurate. We're asking if that is okay. Okay, question 3 is, how much confidence do you have in social media companies to determine which posts on their platforms should be labeled as inaccurate or misleading? Okay, so this one is not nearly as spread out, which is, I don't know, I think is a lot nicer because it shows stronger opinions. Okay, so very few of the people, so only 4% of the sample, have full confidence in social media's companies to differentiate between basically good and bad in their political beliefs. And there were a lot that said that they don't have confidence. It was about 38% of people said that they have not too much confidence. And again, like I said, we have a lot stronger opinions here. We can see that with the spread of the data. Okay, question 4. How likely, if at all, do you think it is that social media sites intentionally censor political viewpoints that they find objectionable? And this one is a lot more opinionated, even more than the last one. And so a thing that I wanted to check out was if we look at like very likely and somewhat likely, if we combine those, they end up being about 3/4 of the sample saying that, like, yeah, social media sites probably end up censoring political viewpoints that they find objectionable. So I had to, again, come up with an example of this. And so say that people of Facebook generally support abortions. So this would be like Facebook censoring posts against abortion just because it goes against the Facebook staff's view. So it's basically, do social media companies have a political agenda in censoring? And like I said before, most people think that they do. Okay, moving on to question 5. Do you think major technology companies tend to support the views of, and we're talking about liberals over conservatives, conservatives over liberals, they're both equally, or there's no answer. And I thought it was really interesting that most people lean towards saying, oh yeah, liberals over conservatives, but then right up on that tail was both equally, and pretty much no one thought conservatives over liberals. Okay, and I feel like I covered that pretty well. Yeah, so 39% of people said there's no favor, and only the 13% think social media sites favor conservatives over liberals, and 43% said yes, liberals over conservatives. Okay, and this one had a very strong opinion to it. Question 6, in the past year, have you changed your views about a political or social issue because of something you saw on social media? And this one, if you paid attention to the no answer percentages in the other ones, they're like anywhere from 2 to 4%. This one's only 1%, which I thought was interesting. And an overwhelming amount of people said, no, I have not done this. And we only have 23% of people who said that they have changed their views. And this question goes right into question 7, which is, if the person answered yes to the last question, they said, please describe a recent instance where you changed your views on a political or social issue because of something you saw on social media. And this one, the main thing that I noticed with it is the majority vote falls in no answer. And granted, it's only like about a third of the people, but I just thought it was really interesting that so many did not answer. And that kind of just made me go like, why? Why would you answer yes? And then, like, did you just not know and it came down to it? Or, like, were you just making stuff up? So, I don't know. Kind of made me wonder, like, did they actually take the survey seriously or not? And so if we go back, you can see that there's a wide variety of what people have changed their minds about. Just mostly things that we're dealing with right now. COVID, President Donald Trump, there's other social issues in general, race relations in general, political parties, ideologies, and politicians, police brutality, and the need for police reform, and Black Lives Matter movement. So a lot of things in there. Okay, question 8. Do you think social media companies should allow all political ads on their platforms, allow only some political ads on their platforms, or not allow any political ads on their platforms? And again, just a small percentage of no answer. And this one, we have over half of people say that absolutely no political ads should be allowed on social media. And then we have some people say like, oh yeah, like all political ads, and then even less people say like, oh, some. And so this played into another question that I saw that I didn't include in this presentation, but it was talking about if people think that social media has gotten more political over the years. And a lot of people were like, oh yeah, for sure, like, I just wanted it to be a way for me to connect with my family and loved ones, but it's just become political and it's kind of chased people away. So I thought that was really interesting, how maybe social media ads are playing into that with the political stuff. Just something to think about. Okay, last question. How acceptable, if at all, do you think it is for social media companies to use data about their users' online activities to show them ads for political campaigns? So this one, again, we see more strong opinions, more variance. Only 1% no answer, 1% no answer, and 4% of people think that's absolutely okay, which is a very small percentage. And the majority, over half of people, don't think that's acceptable at all. So we already know that social media companies and the internet, in just like the internet in general, tracks us. Like, think about, if you're trying to order something on Amazon or really any site, or if you're looking something up, then all of a sudden all of your feed and everything else is just bombarded with that question. Like, if you're looking at plants, all of a sudden all these suggested accounts on Instagram are just about plants. Anyway, so we know they're gonna track us, but should they track our political lives and then direct political ads towards us based on our beliefs? And the majority of the vote said absolutely not. They should not be allowed to do that. And again, this kind of goes on to that other question I saw about how people don't really like seeing political stuff as much as seeing what their friends are up to on social media. And yeah, so then only the 4% of people said it is very acceptable. So we get some strong opinions in there. Okay, and these are just my citations. I use my majority of my questions from just one source. And that is it. Thanks for listening.